loud.
Okay.
And you're good with doing that. Hello, everyone. This is Dan with the Spiritual Underground Podcast. Glad to have you all here listening. If you're just coming along this podcast, we're primarily 12-step recovery, but I do explore other ways in which people get sober, and I explore other modalities of what to do once you get sober. And I like to talk to people who are a force for good in the world. And thankfully, I get to have a good amount of all of that here. Just want to give Darren Frank some prayers and thank him for allowing me to use his music that I wrap around this podcast on the intro and the outro. And I don't think I'm going to waste any more time. My guest today is Tom LaGrave. And I looked up a little bit of him, but like I like to do, I see people do podcasts and they have a sheet of paper and they tell everybody what about their guest. And it's like, well, what's their guest there for? It's let your guest tell what they're up to. So how's it going today, Tom?
It's going well. Thank you.
Good. So let me know what are you up to?
At this point right now, I've written a book, and that is the end of a 45-year span. I'm recovering addict alcoholic. My name's Tom. I first got sober in 1988. I had 32 years and I relapsed.
Wow.
And then October 17th of 2019, 2 weeks after I went out, I got sober again, and I now have 5 years. And this 5 years is the 5 years that is the most honest. I was able to run a program. You get that many years, people look at you, nobody questions you. Don't let people in to absolutely know the inner you, that they can call you on it. And that's your responsibility to put those people there. I forgot. And in forgetting, that's where I went back out. My drug of choice was speed. My alcohol of choice, Jack Daniels, Budweiser. When I went out, I justified smoking marijuana because it had been legalized. And I thought that, you know what, things aren't going right. I want to see if this does actually work. And the bottom line is the marijuana in today's culture is not what I smoked 45 years ago.
Amen.
And what it did was it created a horrendous circumstance. Now, I got two brothers, and they circled around. We're a family of recovering addicts and alcoholics. And they put it to me point blank, no kindness, no. They said, if you want to get this, we're here for you. If you don't come around. And I, after 2 weeks, was incapable of living again. And so I found myself back creating the program and doing it in the right way that I suggest to others when they ask. Now, it goes back to I started my use at 14. At 18, I got caught with my middle brother getting high, and my father threw me out of his house. And I thought at 18, and this is 1978. And I'm not going to go back. I can do this myself. So I chose to go down to the recruiter, and I went in the Navy. And I had a wonderful military career that, because of my addiction that I brought with me into the military, I was a hospital corpsman, and I'm a former Navy SEAL. And at 9 years and 6 months, I got discharged for drug use from SEAL Team 1. And I caved. My life just, it wasn't just a job, it was an identity. I could not separate me from what I did. And under the circumstances, there was no going back. I was discharged. They gave me a general under honorable, and they gave me an RE code of 4 saying, you're never coming back. So I literally had to turn around and look out and figure it out. And I had no clue. So to go back to my parents' house with my tail between my legs, And the deal was, if you come back here, we'll take you, but you need to address this issue. I went to a 90-day recovery facility. It's called Project 90. And in that 90 days, I broke the physical addiction, but the how to live life part, man, I'm still working on that. And what it came down to is, because of my background, I had been drugs and alcohol, they shut us down. Our emotions are just, that's what we're not wanting to deal with. Well, when you're in the military, you're also being groomed for a very specific type of job. And in doing that, there can't be emotions, there can't be thought, you have to react, you can't act. And now I have all of those things in place that are keeping me from my emotions, which, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't want to feel. I'm a guy,
Yeah.
you know what? Um, it's not what I thought it was. So I was coming up on the year. I had done my fourth and fifth step, and I still hadn't figured it out. It wasn't working. So in my divine wisdom, I thought, I couldn't see childhood. I'm 29 at this time, and I can't see it. I can't feel it. So I went and applied for a job working with adolescents at a recovery facility. They were 13 to 17, and I thought, if I go there and watch them and see them and learn from them, maybe I can figure this out. So I ended up working there for 4 years, and um, forever grateful to adolescents, because what they did was they taught me how to play, they taught me how to forgive myself, they taught me how to be a friend, and they 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 made me see that I was worthy of being just another human being that is trying to figure out life.
Yeah.
So the thing was, as at that point, I didn't have an education, no credentials, and they weren't going to give me a caseload. So I was like, fine, I got everything I needed from this. And had, at that time, I'd been offered another job where I was running a Boys and Girls Club. Now these ages shift from 13 to 17 to 6 to 18. And those are the the ages that brought about my understanding of how to live life and how to be sober and trustworthy and honest and honorable. And so at the end of 4 years there, I recognized that I had a gift working with kids, because I didn't know what I was doing, and I was honest, and I spoke to them in not as an adult to a child. I talked to them, one person to another person, and they would share with me their issues, and I would then have the ability, when you asked for it, to help. So what I did is, at the end of 4 years adolescent recovery, 4 years Boys and Girls Club, I went back to school. So at this stage, I've got a bachelor's, I have a master's, I have a license, board certification as a clinical social worker. So what it is I'm good at getting into other people's business and giving them suggestions, and now having to remember that I need my own therapist. So that's pretty much it in at the beginning of how it came about, where it ended up, the loss of a career to gaining a new career. And at this stage right now, I am doing what's called telehealth. We do it like this. It's a Zoom, and I approach folks this way. And I'm coming to the end of my career, and I have a 501c3 nonprofit called Honor Bound Academy. And this is what I came up looking at: what is the key element for youth that they are not getting, that can be, because it once was given, that we can bring back, and that's a rite of passage.
Yeah. I
So,
agree.
my military career, I went to BUDS. I graduated class 106. The graduating date was what was it, February 29th, 1980. And that rite of passage, you get it in the military. Everybody gets that right. But when it comes to Bud's training, that was a completely different animal. And I was able to see, um, because what had happened there was I just said, yes, yes, I'm not quitting, I'm not giving up. And I did not realize what was going on in the creation of a seal. And when I got sober, there were dark places, doors closed, and areas that I don't know how to fix that because I don't know what was done because I just said yes. And so at this point, get back to the book, having the nonprofit, it's a rite of passage. And at this stage right now, I am trying to put it out to the larger world because what it is I attempted to get funding and it didn't work. So I spent 10 years seeking from a litany of individuals, and nobody wanted to give me what $6,191,000 for a 2-year pilot project. So now I'm sitting here getting ready to retire. I have all this research that went into this program, and I can't leave it because it, it it's it's too promising. So I wrote a book. I told a story. I explained what it was that I was trying to do, how I had found this with youth, that if we set it back in motion, and it's a rite of passage between adolescent and adulthood, where instead of you're left on your own devices to figure it out,
Yep.
it's a rite of passage with the mentoring program attached. And so that's the skeleton way outside of Tom and why I'm here.
I'll tell you a couple things. When I was 15 years old, I think it was someplace in there, I ran across Richard Marcinko's Rogue Warrior,
Yes.
and I read all them books, and it became had and still do to some extent have a man crush on Navy SEALs. I listen to their podcasts. I read books and listen to books, and that in the little tagline that. So, for lack of a better term, your handler sent me the email. When I saw that, I knew I was saying yes to this one.
Yes.
And then I saw the thing about the adolescent stuff, and something is broken out here.
Yeah.
The way, and that's the way, I started using drinking same time, 14 years old. Matter of fact, I am still sitting at the very table I bought my mom and dad's house later on, and I'm sitting at the same table right this moment that I first got, the first time I ever got drunk was right here on a snow day in the seventh grade, or seventh or eighth grade, something like that. My mom and dad worked, and one of my buddies called me up and said, "Hey, your mom and dad gone today, right?" And I said, "Yep." He said, "You want me and Tracy come over? Me and Tracy come over and we'll drink some beer." And it really didn't make any difference what they would have said, let's do. If they said, "Can we come over and play checkers?" or "Can we want to go throw snowballs at cars?" or "Do you want to," I wanted to be a part of these other guys so bad that I'm going to say yes to anything. And then that kind of arrested development kind of thing that I really, I got sober at age 45. And honestly, there was like a bell that went off a year or so later where I actually felt like a man, not a little boy.
Yeah.
All through my life, I felt like the little boy that got his dad's suit on and the arms are hanging off too long and the shoes are too big, and I'm walking around in adult clothing and nobody notices that I'm just a little boy.
Yeah.
Uh, and I went through one program a few years ago in sobriety, just as there's a speaker I like that says, "I smell more." And once I started getting some traction when in recovery, more than just sobriety, but actually recovering from that life that I had, I went through the thing called the Mankind Project, and they have a similar kind of rite of passage piece in it, and you don't have to be an adult. But I really got into. I really liked what they were telling me, and talking. One of the things, a lot of Native American based stuff, and about how, like, specifically in the indigenous people of this country, they had a real rite of passage to bring a boy into manhood. And in a certain point in our lives, people had mentors and apprentices and stuff like that, where you had a guy, like, as a man, you had another man outside your family, because for some reason the blockage, just like when your family's
Yeah.
telling you, you gotta get
Yeah.
sober, you can't do it. I always tell guys, I said, they'll want their friend to sponsor them, or they'll know a guy, and they know a guy they already know him. And I'm like, that's not the guy that's going to help you. It's going to be some stranger is going to be who's going to help you. And uh, I like what you're doing there. It's a missing piece because I have a 19-year-old daughter right now struggling with chemical dependency, substance abuse stuff. She did just conquer a year just the other day off of fentanyl, but she thinks she can still dabble in other things, and she won't listen to her 10-year-old sober dad who's got a 40-year sober sponsor. We might as well be Charlie Brown's teacher talking on the TV. And all she tells me, I know, Dad. I know, I know, I know. And it goes off playing in the same playgrounds and you're not going to stay sober playing in that playground. You're not going to. And you want some more pain? I guess you're going to get it. I can't stop her. And I did just similar to I'll do anything to help you get better, sweetheart. I'm not going to do a single thing that helps you stay sick.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head with that too, because that generation, your daughter's age, I do not. I I walk my walk. I walk my talk, and it's what eventually they'll gravitate to. But as a parent, it is horrible because you can't. My parents couldn't tell me why are the kids. It's not going to happen. Now, you had made mention with the Native American. The program is based in, I took one of the wealthiest peoples as the patron in the United States. I took a Native American group that would bring in their way, their spirituality, and then I merged it with one of the various types of special forces. And then getting sober, I got sober by reading a book by J.R.R. Tolkien. It's called Silmarillion. And he took uh, he took from God and arced it through the angels and took it through all the variations that have occurred from Avalon being this little island that people we hear about. And he told a story about elves and men and dwarves, but he was telling a story of a power greater, the expectations, what's right and wrong. Because when I began sobriety, I'm looking at a world that doesn't like to live from where I'm looking in a noble fashion. And so to figure out how to get sober, I went to the kids and to that book. And so the point being is navigating with Native American, because I can't do religion. Religion as a social worker and politics, that's outside of my scope. I can send you where you need to go if that's what you need to hear. But with that said, it's, the spirituality is the piece that I think is what's missing.
Yeah, I agree. This thing about the recovery moment says you've got to have this vital spiritual awakening. And a lot of people corner that into the religion world, and that's not the way I was taught. That I have this spirit inside of me that's basically been put to sleep and anesthetized by whatever happened to me. It may not have been be trauma, could be other stuff, but the dope and the booze sure didn't help keep it alive. And then I totally killed my spirit by the time that I came to recovery, and that's what needed to be awakened. It needed to be healed. My spirit, my very essence was sick.
Yeah, and the fentanyl thing right now is when we were youngsters, it was always dangerous, but it was fun. And now with fentanyl, it's cruel.
Yeah.
And I have found the kids that when I do clinical with youth, I have to differentiate between experimentation and addiction. At 14, I was experimenting. At 15, I was addicted. Now, everybody's got a different way to add that up. And with that said, it comes down to understanding that I lost my thought. What was I saying?
You'll get it back as I talk.
Yeah. Go,
Yeah, well,
your turn.
that's always the way it works. My sponsor and I play that on our podcast all the time. He'll get hung up, and I'll know that's my time to
Yeah.
start talking because as soon as I get to talking, he'll figure
I'm
out what
like,
he was saying.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, like when I was a kid, what I say is the drug supply was safe. You know, if you
Yeah.
got pot, you knew you were getting pot. If you got cocaine, you knew you were getting cocaine. If you got some acid, you knew you was getting acid. And my daughter did not intend to be a fentanyl addict. She took pain, what she thought were pain pills, but they weren't. They were black market pain pills, and they really worked good. You know, that's one thing about fentanyl. It works. It's effective.
And the duration is short, and that's why it's going. It's for the producers and the distributors. They love it.
Yep.
It's a powerful punch, short lived, and you're coming back again.
Yep.
And
Super addictive.
unfortunately, you just never know when it's that hot shot you're going to
Yep.
pop.
That's it. There
And
was a time
what
sheet.
I was saying was kids in their room experimenting, going online. We spoke of Amazon. There's the dark net, and you can get it delivered to your front door. And you just want to try this. I'm not going to tell anybody. I don't want my parents to know. And you end up with thinking it's a Vicodin and it's fentanyl. And you're up in your room and you got your music playing and you're all stoked, and your parents find you. That's the horror story that I've had, unfortunately, experienced too many times with doing the clinical with families that
Yeah.
had that as a situation.
That's
So
awful. And I've
yeah,
walked in. My daughter was living with me for a while. She's with her mom again now. Uh, to wake up in the night and walk in her bedroom to watch her take a breath.
yeah,
Once you take a breath, then I could
okay,
back out of there, go back to sleep.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So there's something broken out there that's doing it. And I was talking last night. Or my home group's a men's group, and we talk about how, like, how to do life. Not so much, we help the new guys get sober, but there's a lot of guys that are in there, and we're working together as brothers, men together, uh, figuring out this thing that you were speaking about that we're still trying to figure out how to do. I'm better at it than I used to be. I'm making progress day by day, I feel like. Uh, but
absolutely.
but everybody's at a different place in it. And last night we were talking about that, that like men's suicide is out, especially young men's suicide is off the charts, man. Um, and the amount of people that are addicted and youth homeless and the homeless youth, something's broken.
Yeah, yeah. The suicide rate now between the ages of 13 and 23, nobody wants to talk about it. Veterans, that this latest generation of veterans, the suicide rate, the VA is trying everything in their power to address it. And it's white males later in life that are committing suicide because what? You lost purpose and meaning.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had anything to share, what I came to understand working with youth, they gave me purpose. And then I found my meaning because I want to work with them the rest of my life. And that's where I sit right now. I have generations of youth in their 40s, 30s, 20s. I got lawyers and I got San Quentin convicts, and they're all my kids. I love them all, and it doesn't matter. You come to me, be sober, and speak your truth, and I'll never turn you away
Yep.
because you gave me my life back. That's how I see it. That's how my internal mechanism is dialed in. Those kids gave me my life back. I'm spending the rest of my life giving them whatever it is they need.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head with the purpose and meaning thing. Recovery's giving me that. That has me sitting behind this computer right now, doing what I'm doing right now, talking about how to get better. But everything that you can ask me about anything about my life, and the beginning of it was recovery, and that hit me solidly enough. And once I started after sponsoring one guy, and getting that joy that I had by ultimately it's getting out of me because otherwise all I'm thinking about is me, right? Me. That gets me there's some magic that happens when I get out of me and I help you. And it's the single best thing I do in my life today, and it is what my purpose is. I know why I'm here. I know what I'm doing. I'm here to help other people get sober, and I just pretty much all my life's energy is
Yeah.
put into that. But I also know how to recharge my batteries, and I know how to do also self-care and stuff. Because probably after we hang up here, I've got an awesome little log cabin out in Orange County, Indiana, that's up against the Hoosier National Forest, and I'm gonna put a bow in my hand and go disappear in a tree for a few days,
There you go.
recharge my batteries.
Yeah. And that's the part that, especially as a clinician, you can forget. And that goes for all of us. uh, you get so focused on, I had done such damage to everybody and everything in my life that I now want to make up for it. And you've got to come to terms with your guilt. You
Yep.
know, guilt is self imposed. Nobody's putting that on me. If I'm feeling guilty, it's because I'm feeling guilty. And the bottom line is, I have nothing to feel guilty about right now. I have transitioned from a dark place, had a hiccup, find myself back here more than ever, feeling life at its best, wanting to give back. But as you said, I live out in rural Northern California, and I go for my walks and my bicycles, and I nature is just, as far as I'm concerned, the best counselor ever made.
Yep. Yep.
What you can find in nature is a balance.
I've known that from the time I was a kid. I'm fortunate that I don't have I interview a lot of people, and a big common denominator is broken family, parents, and uh, poor parenting, just to be straight up. I didn't fall in that department. My dad is a superstar. Matter of fact, he lives with me. He lives right upstairs, and mom passed away a few years ago. And from the time I was a little kid, I was in the woods with dad and doing manly stuff. And uh, I learned how to fix things, and that's my occupation now. Is I go to people's houses and fix stuff, uh, kind of like a handyman. Uh,
Yeah.
and I was in corporate America for 28 years and dying there. Uh, yeah, when I was a young hard charger, I had fun with it, but then after a certain amount of time there, I was just going through the motions, and it just didn't have any, I wasn't learning anything anymore. And uh, God knew that, or the universe, or whatever anybody wants to say, uh, tapped me on the shoulder and they laid me off after 28 years. I worked there 24 years as an alcoholic drug addict. I got sober and I worked there for 4 years, and they give me the boot. I know there's some reasons around that too, because I just wasn't doing the dance the way you got to do the dance to stay in those leagues. I learned how to say no. Well, one reason I had to say no is because I got caught breaking in houses stealing pain pills.
Ah,
I walked in a dark house one night, and I actually put a pocket full of what I was looking for in my pocket. When I turned around in the dark hallway, the owner's son, the elderly owner's son, had a baseball bat and pepper spray, and he laid into me with both of them.
wow.
That was 11 years ago. I was 44 years old, and uh, it just I just couldn't find. I didn't see any reason to live, and I certainly didn't see any reason to live in a sober state. And for the first 9 months, I got sentenced. They told me when I went down there, they said, and Judge Cody down in New Albany said, crimes I had committed, the sentencing guidelines for the crimes you committed is 6 to 20 years in the Indiana Department of Corrections. And I will be honest and say that scared me. I did not think I was prison material. I don't think anybody is, but I didn't think I was prison material. And for some reason, I knew enough to know that I didn't know if I was going to go to prison or not, but I knew that if I didn't stay sober, that was going to up the chances of me going. And I jumped in a sponsor's hip pocket, and and again, the universe had me find the exact men's group that I needed to find. The same in my home group today, where guys were we're smiling and hugging and loving on one another, and we're doing things outside the room too. It wasn't just a weekly meeting. We just 10 of us just come back from the mountains of Colorado back in September, and these guys, I run into them, and I end up getting sentenced to a year of home incarceration and a year of probation, and then the third 3 years, and the third one put on the shelf. Yeah.
Power greater than yourself.
Yep, yep. Doing for me what I can't do for myself, and so I got that home incarceration, and so that you had to fill out a schedule, and they let me do recovery. I could go to a meeting every night. They let me go to work, and they let me do most of taking my kids where they needed to be, dance and scouts and that kind of stuff. But you had to get the leader there to sign a piece of paper stating that you was
Yeah, yeah,
there.
yeah,
And so that's a little humbling when you got to go as a scoutmaster every week and get your
yeah.
paper signed. And
Explain that to him.
yeah,
Yeah,
in the dance, the scoutmaster was obviously genuinely good dude, and he's put a lot of service and found his place there, and he knew a little bit about my background, and he was actually happy and was encouraging me. He was we do not only do we do amends for the things that we did where we harmed somebody, we also go out and tell the people who did something good for us, thank you,
yeah.
in our amends process, and go out and do what we call good amends. And that guy was on my list because he did. Now, the dance instructor, not so much,
Ah, okay.
but I couldn't work after, I couldn't stay after work. My employer never found out about any of it.
Wow.
All the probation officer said, as long as I keep turning in a timesheet every 2 weeks, they'll figure I was working. And
Yes.
so I just
Yeah.
make a copy of my pay stub. Actually, it wasn't timesheet, it's a pay stub. And so it made me have to learn to say no. And then when I learned that you actually could say no to these special things, then whenever the ankle bracelet come off, I just kept on. I'll do my job, but I just don't want any extra today. Don't put me on that special team that has to work till 7 p.m. I don't want on that team anymore. I will come in here and work from 8 to 4:30 and go home and do what I want to do.
Yeah. Hey, you made again a good point with making amends and to loved ones. You said your pop's upstairs. I lost mom and dad 2 weeks apart a year and a half ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And no, this at this age, it was the right time for the right person to go. And it was hard
Understand that.
for a minute there, but what it came down to was I am a mama's boy. I loved everything about my mother. She's the one that taught me how to be a gentleman. My father was, you want to cry, I'll give you something to cry about. His was my way or no way. And back at that time, corporal punishment, the belt came off, you knew what you were getting, just stand there and okay. And I had a love-hate relationship with my father. And doing the amends, I did it, but it rung hollow. It just I couldn't get there, and or I wouldn't let it get there. So Pops is in his final throes. He's in a home, and he is unfortunately he's in diapers, and the man that was not what I looked at there. And when I looked at him, um, the day before he left us, he looked at me with this shit-eating grin on his face. And my father was a son of an alcoholic mother who died when he was 7, and she abused the hell out of him. I mean, literally threw him, at 5, 6, 7, into walls, over couches, and he could never come to terms with his mother. And so that part of his life was taboo. We did not ever talk about it. And in that moment, before the day he left, I got to see that kid. And I saw that, that goofy smile. His eyes were not angry. And I was able to forgive him. And then I got to forgive myself. And right now, love mom, love dad, go to the cemetery, put the flowers down, tell them I'm doing fine. I love you guys. And life for me, coming to terms with loved ones, which is really the difficult one.
Amen.
Because if it doesn't, you're held hostage if you can't forgive. And I lived my life. A year and a half ago, I finally found it at the very end. But it's one of those things that I'm forever grateful that I was able to see that, feel that, and become that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the tool of forgiveness, man. There's I don't know if there's a more powerful one out there. And this is the stuff that, like, I don't know. I'll say that 12-step recovery's given me a way to do life. It's given me some operating guidelines. And a little joke is, and I stole it from somebody else, that I don't know if it was the second or third grade, whenever they were handing out the little guidebook on how to do life, I must have been absent that day because I never felt like I had a way of doing things. And that gets back to this stuff of working with these adolescents, of giving them these tools like that, like the tool of learning. I mean, and everybody says forgive and forget and all this kind of stuff, but I was taught a methodology that helped me learn to have forgiveness in my heart most of the time. That's my default today. Didn't used to be, but some people have played around with the way the 12 steps are, and we've moved some prayers to the 8-step, and we pray on our 4-step notebooks in our
Yeah.
8-step, and pray for forgiveness. Do these specific forgiveness prayers, and you don't have to do the prayers. We just give you a flavor for what the prayers are to sound like or feel like, what we're aiming at, And after doing that, 180 times off everybody that was in my notebook, and actually having to mean it with some of them, because that was one of the criteria before I could go out and make amends with somebody, that I had to be arriving with forgiveness in my heart rather than coming, like you said, where it rang hollow back then. That's kind of what I hear, that forgiveness was not really there. I don't want to cast anything, but that's what I hear, and it will. And if you can go with forgiveness in your heart to even the people that you've wronged big time, it's been my experience so far that each and every single person out there wished me well after that meeting. I didn't
Yes.
have a single amends go south
Yeah.
because I will say it's because of that forgiveness working, and that repetition created a new value in me that was lacking in the past.
Yeah. Okay. I got another one for you. Let me get this.
Okay,
So this is the book.
I like it. Special
Yeah.
warfare,
It's
social warfare,
not special welfare, social
welfare. Boy,
welfare.
look at my eyes. See
Yeah.
something else.
Adolescent to adulthood, a guidebook. So now at the very end, when I put this, you got it?
Yep, I got
When
it.
I put this together, um, I started it 30 years ago. Um, men's world is becoming changed to it's a man's and a woman's world. But back then, all the research that I did, all the individuals that I sought to have support from to help guide me, refused to do it any other way than to have the program for boys. When I saw it in my mind's eye, I saw it for girls. And the reason I say that is because when I was working at the Boys and Girls Club, it came to an understanding that today's young girls are more equal to boys in what they need in their transitions too. And
Mm,
so at the very end, I leave a saying that says, everything you're reading in here is from the masculine, but I want you to know that I have a whole Rolodex that is marked the feminine mystique. And what you read in there, I can do for the girls as well as I could do for the boys. And the reason again that came about was when a kid, when you're trying to tell a kid what to do, they're not going to listen. When you get a kid to say, hey, what is that? And they ask you a question, you got them. And that's the part right there where I want to be able to make sure that there is a transition for all of today's youth in this program, and it's made specific. I can't merge them. The recovery facility was co-ed. 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old kids. So you do the program for the males and for the females. But that, in thinking about your 19-year-old daughter, because I chose an age, I went with 18, 19, and 20. 17 and under, I can't deal with parents. First of all, parents, they're your kid. At 18, they're our kid. And 21 begins the process where you can vote, you can drink, and you've become pretty much what you're going to be. I want to capture you at 18, 19, and 20 because that's where I can have the most effect of changing perspectives. But on that said, I will be in the domain of the young men and I'll be on the board with the young ladies because I've found the women in my life that everyone that I crossed paths in the last 30 years that could be a part of this to make it happen in the way I see it, I have them. That Rolodex is real. I can call saying I get the money, and then I'll make the next 35 calls to all these powerful women who will run that program. And that's where I'm sitting. And why did I do it? Because I couldn't get the funding. But in the book, you'll read the story and see the program. And if this does end up, power greater than I putting it out in the world can now, I'm opening the door for it. Maybe now it'll come.
Maybe. I hope so. Yep.
Yeah.
World needs it. Uh, get this opportunity to talk to quite a few people who, what I just simply say are forces for the good out there. The other thing I say, if I look at that TV, which I never do, but I get stuck in front of them now and again, and listen to certain things on the internet, I think the world is going to crap, and it may be, but I keep meeting tons of people, and I do think the good it will overcome the bad, just like it does in those storybooks. That the good will prevail, and I just love running into all these people that are out in the world working to help other people. And really at the beginning, and I said that about me, it's cool that the 45-year-old dude got sober and I'm doing good stuff now. That's cool. But the real trick is not having 14, 15, 16, 18, 19, 20-year-old Dan get to be the guy that ended up being the guy that needed to get sober at 45. So some things have been different in my life, inches and seconds from me making decisions on which way I was going to go, making uninformed decisions. Had no idea where dope and booze was going to take me. You know what? Just like you said, if somebody maybe could have laid that out for me and said, "Hey, meet Bill. He did what you did." And give me a little bit. I really did. I wandered into that stuff with just a vague notion that there were some adults saying drinking and doping was bad, but they weren't having any kind of other influence on me. I kind of ended up, and some people talk about it, with a little trauma from the church. There was stuff going on there that I couldn't reconcile in my childhood head, and it wasn't getting any help with it. And I grew up with a lot of blockages towards allowing any kind of spirituality in my life. And that's it turned out to be, ultimately, one level, I think it's the key. My sponsor and I always say what the best thing is. We always are talking about the best thing is our brotherhood and our friends and gotten real men in our life. And then the next thing is helping another person. And the best thing, the skids seem to be greased right now too. Most things go pretty easy. I don't, doors will open for me that, I'll be working on something and I fix it easy and I'm off early today. Just the skid, like I said, the skids seem to be greased doing this lifestyle the way I'm doing it, and can't regret the past. I didn't get it back then, but we decided the other day that really ultimately it seems that all of that best things hangs from power greater than myself and being in cahoots with that.
You're here. Yeah. The last job I went to where I actually went to work was a community health center. I was an integrative behavioral specialist working with the homeless. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It's one thing to see it on the news. It's another thing to see it in the newspaper. It's a completely different animal to walk up in it. And my way of being able to deal with the homeless was I'm no better than you, man. I woke up this morning, I got 4 hours of sobriety, and there's no guarantee I'm going to make it to the end of the day. And I'm not here to judge you or look at you because I once was you. And that, to be able to work with that is so humbling, but I'm one of those guys that, why? Why are we got homeless? Why do we got so much addiction? Why? And in the book, I went after that, not to say I'm right and here it is, but to say it's not what's in front of your face. Go deeper. Just like in sobriety, go deeper. Ask the questions deeper. And the big one, listen to what other people got to say. I'm like, if you come out and you're going to save me, you're not. If you come out and say, I hope that we can have an enjoyable conversation, I'm saying, okay, let's see. Right now, that desire is just, and all the issues that go behind the homelessness and the addiction and the adolescent suicide and the veteran suicide, all of that, something's going on. And I don't know when it's going to come about, but like us, there is a group in this country of ours that I say they're lying in troubled slumber, and it's not their calling time. But if it goes one way, there's a mass of, from what I have learned in my travels around this country, that there are more people that want to do good than not. And why are they not here yet? You know what? Power greater's moving me. All that I can do is worrying about when it's my time. But I believe from sharing with you, hearing from you, all parts of the country, there are folks that are waiting. And if it goes bad, but they're going to be there if it does. And if it goes good, they'll stay in slumber. That's a social
Yeah,
worker's perspective.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I get as I said, my sponsor is a social worker too, and he's I he listened to a lot from him, and that's what he brings to the table here. He and I, mostly him, but they call me Lieutenant Dan. Uh,
Ah,
they we started a little movement here in Louisville where we just started making meetings where you didn't have to be an alcoholic or addict to come in and get the tools, because I think that's like the
big time.
missing thing is that nobody has tools, and there's a number of toolboxes that will work.
Yeah.
And my toolbox may not work for you and vice versa. But I have a toolbox, and I kind of do tell people I'm gonna run one trick pony. If you want, if you want this, I got it. And I watched it work. I said, well, I've got a recipe will work for you. I can guarantee it. And I really can today. I can tell a man, I can guarantee you if you will follow this recipe, and it's not that hard. You've lived to the age you are today. You can handle it. I can guarantee you that your life's going to get better, and it's probably going to get a whole lot better than you think it can. But I don't know, and it don't promise you your wife back, and it don't promise a lot of things like that. But your life can be, you can improve your life. And I don't know anybody that doesn't really want that, except for when they're hijacked. I look at the like all these diseases, and I don't know that they're even classified as diseases, but these things that take people over and hijack their operating system, just like a computer virus does to your computer. And it's really not that person that's standing there saying, I want to get better.
Yeah.
The disease is back there pulling the strings like a joystick cord hanging out the rear end with this entity. And maybe that's what they meant when they used to talk about the devil. I don't know. Maybe that whatever that force is that seems to take over. Most people, most people do want better, and that's what we sell around here. We say, you want some tools that can make your life better, and you don't have to be an alcoholic or an addict. We got to in the beginning, women were coming, and we didn't have any women that had the tools. Speaking of your Rolodex, so there's a
Yeah.
number of guys there that had tools, and we just went ahead and did the deal and cross gender sponsored, and it was less than ideal, and I think it's better when it's the other way. But what that did, it put the tools in some of their hands, and then when a new girl would come in, we could coach them, and then they get it under their own wheels after taking a couple girls under their wings, and they got a very powerful women's group running right now that much like our men's group, they hang out together and they somebody needs a couch moved, somebody will be there, and it's really fun to see them doing that. And I grew as a result tremendously by sponsoring some females. They brought stuff to the table that I wasn't, that wasn't accustomed to. Probably a lot like what you're talking about when you go talk to the homeless. They bringing something into my toolbox that wasn't there before, and that's always good. We got a element of guys in our home group that do a lot of homeless outreach. They're out feeding them every weekend and sitting down talking to them under the bridges and trying to keep them warm and dry and stuff like that.
And they've outlawed it now. I mean, it's actually illegal to be homeless.
Oh yeah,
And
it's like everything else. Let's just throw them in prison.
yeah,
That's our solution. That's our fix in this country for when you got a problem, go to jail.
yeah. And you know that the prison system is its own entity. It literally needs people to break the law. And
Yeah.
My progression, I worked child protective services at the beginning. I went from there to the developmentally disabled. From there, I worked at a geriatric seniors home, and then I went into the prisons. I spent 18 months working to better my skill set at that stage. I wasn't understanding what's called differential diagnosis. You got anxiety and depression. Well, can you tell the difference? Because in women it's this way, and in children it's this way, and then I if you're going to be worth your salt as a clinician, you need to be able to differentiate. So I went into the prison system because I knew for a fact everybody was going to lie to me. I had one wall. I knew you were going to lie, and then I could call you on it. And then when we got a mutual respect, I could ask you, where did it go wrong? How did it go wrong? When did it go wrong? Where is it when? And I had as a social worker in the prison system, the colors are separate. But as the social worker, I blended in all because that's what I was hired to do and expected to do. So I got to hear it from all aspects. And then from there, I did before the developmental center, the last job was in the jail. Because the jail that you're in, you're not guilty yet. So you got to be treated in a way. And it's I did the jail for a year. So 18 months later, I had to leave that job because the boundaries that addicts and alcoholics are required to put in place, so are clinicians, and I didn't know how to do that early in my career. And it literally, oh man, it screwed me up royally. I thought by going to the jail and it being different, well, a year later, I'm like, I can't do this. I know where my strengths lie. I know where, but having gone and having seen all of that information is now mine to be able to share with whoever's sitting in front of me, whatever color, whatever age. It doesn't, I'm a social worker, it don't matter. And if I'm true to myself, you'll sense it and it works.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yep. I heard a guy get up there night was talking about people when he's out in the world, and he said, you guys don't realize it on yourself, but you wear your recovery, and people out there feel that and see it, and you don't have to say a word about it. They don't necessarily know what it is, but there's something about that dude, and I can see that in you, and that gets that that allows people to start, like you said, when you're genuine and know you're going to shoot people straight and that kind of thing. People will lay down their guard a little bit with you and maybe get real. And so you have to be able to cultivate that. And all that stuff, all that exposure you just went through from, I can't even repeat them, but jails, homeless, child protective, all that deal. This is like one of the things. My perspective was broke, and getting around here and like being exposed to things like that gives me some real useful perspective when I can. Similar to when I sponsored those gals, you get these, something happens to you when you do that, and then you gain from it. They rub off on you a little bit. You can go to the wrong places too, and get rubbed off on the wrong way too if you're not careful. And that's where them boundaries come up. Because if you can't, it's what we joke about, like the old Ghostbusters thing. You get slimed. like the Ghostbusters movie.
Yeah.
I can hang around with certain people, man, and I come out feeling like I need a shower.
Isn't that interesting how that is? And especially working with kids, they'll see right through you in a heartbeat.
yeah,
Can't lie, can't manipulate, can't deceive. All that you can be is honest.
yeah, yep.
Yeah.
People feel it, integrity, and there's something you know. We kind of all try to walk around, and I can hide it for a little bit,
Yeah.
but you
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
hide
Yeah.
it. You can't have it for real long, or could hide it for. That's great. The best thing about recovery today, when you meet Dan, and I don't care if you're at a hunting camp or the convenient or the $150 steakhouse over across the bridge in Louisville, you'll be meeting the same man every single time, and that wasn't the way it was.
Yeah. 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 And this is that, to get up every morning and know what I am,
Mhm.
and to say my prayers in the morning, say my prayers at the night, and be grateful for everything in between, especially now with masculine males. I'm not going to ask for help. I don't need you. You can be my friend. Don't. I got two brothers that are masculine too. And as a clinician, I don't have an on off switch. I got a dimmer switch.
Uh,
And with them, I dim it because they don't want me in their heads. And I've learned how being what you are when the right time comes about and the person is in need, we're brought together. And it isn't what I say, it's what I am. People see truth, especially when you're hurting, because you know what you are, and you can see it in so many people, and then you see it in someone that's not sounding like, it's not feeling like, and all of a sudden you get to do the work. Sweet. Yeah. Love
yeah,
it.
it is. Um, well, another thing's kind of funny. And I've seen this in a couple of people where they had something like a piece of your life, like and being a Navy SEAL is a no shit deal.
Yeah.
If you've done that and you've been and the only reason I know that is from observation, nothing else, just from watching, uh, listening and reading. And like the whole time, it was like a 3-second blurb that was a piece of your former life, because of all this other stuff and not being you said it earlier about like getting attached to who you are, what you do, and really attaching your personality to that. We had a guy come in not too long ago, and find out after it took us a couple of years. This dude was a high end MMA fighter,
Yeah.
and but never talked about it.
Yeah.
And you can go Google his name, and it'll pop up, and there he is fighting the biggest dudes, and he never really pitched over, but he was
Yeah.
fighting the best guys, uh,
Yeah.
and uh, and never said a word about it. And interesting that because see, I think I would come in and make sure everybody fucking knew I was in MMA.
Well,
Uh,
can I give you that piece?
Especially when I was a
Yeah, let
new guy.
me give you this piece though. Um, I went through training 4 years after Vietnam War. So all the instructors, everybody that put their marks on me were Vietnam veterans.
Right.
They were angry and pissed off. They didn't, the society had turned on them. The boomer generation, you either went or
Wow.
you didn't. And so when they trained us, they were, you don't wear it, you don't talk it, you don't say it. We know who you are. No one else needs to know. And that's the lesson. Now, each generation, like right now, the instructors that are teaching are Iraq and Afghanistan. That's a different perspective. So your initial grooming at Buds, I had Vietnam pounding us, saying, we know how good you are. We're telling you you're good. We're telling you we're going to knock the shit out of you. But it's not what needs to be told to anyone. So my generation seal is that.
Yeah.
If there are those that are going to say it, and my hat's off to them because I'm as proud as can be of it. But I was schooled by a generation that was different than today. And that's the
So you
only
probably could
reason
have been drinking back then. Were you drinking then? I
oh,
mean, I don't,
you had to drink. If you
you had
couldn't
to. That's
drink,
what I figured.
you
You
got
wouldn't be in the
separated.
club.
You could get into the teams, but if you couldn't drink, yeah,
So you were, yeah. So,
yeah,
I think about the veil that covered me up during those years that I could not see then. It's only looking back now that, like, looking back at my life, like, particularly like high school, I don't even remember. I mean, there's just very few things that I can tell you my teachers' names.
yeah,
I could tell you who the principal was. It's a fog. It was shrouded in a fog due to
yeah.
well, who knows, due to me, due to Dan, because some trauma in early life and some things that went sideways and this and that piled up on me. And then you start doing the other, start putting chemicals on top of it so that you could feel okay. High school was gone, and so was some years. Like, I mean, I got married and was married for 17 years. I got two kids. We're divorced now. My alcoholism ended that marriage after she stayed 17 years. Uh, and we're good friends now. Again, because of that amends process. She wouldn't have pissed on me if I was on fire
Yeah,
15 years ago. But
that's the program working at its
today
finest.
we're working together to try and be supportive for this little girl we
Yes,
made.
yes.
But there's a cloud. Like, I don't hardly remember my kids getting born. I don't remember. There's just a cloud over my almost a whole bunch of my past. I vaguely remember. Do you feel the same way about that time in the teams?
I I shared early sobriety. Well, I couldn't see it, feel it, and that's why I went worked with kids, not to help kids. Don't get me wrong, I was no
Help you.
noble then, but I needed to watch it and see it, and as they were feeling it, I could then feel it. But left to my own
Childhood was gone to
devices,
you.
that I think it was good. I don't remember anything bad, but I don't remember anything. So if you got to go back to your childhood, I couldn't. My military career was when I remember because I screwed it up. But prior to that, I knew I didn't like my father. I loved my mother, got along with my brothers, um, enjoyed high school. They divorced, but they divorced when I was in the military. My youngest brother got that one. But as it stands right now, it's yeah, the promises have made life for me uh, so much enjoyment to live because I get to give. This is new to me. This podcast thing,
Oh, is
you
it?
know. I wrote the book, and then the gal that's helping me out said, "Well, we're going to start sending." I'm like, "Okay,"
Okay.
and I am learning at each throw. I'm watching you. I look at your background. I'm taking it all in because um, we get better. And we get to see our weaknesses and we get to acknowledge them because I don't I don't gain no knowledge from success.
No,
Okay. But my failures, man, they've taught
they,
me
they teach you.
and
Yeah.
to repeat one of those, shame on you.
Yeah.
I learned those lessons and that 2 week hiccup was it was 10 years in the making. It wasn't an overnight thing. And it came to my will and the will of something greater. And my will had arrived. And again, I was taking charge and sounding good, but lying to myself.
Yeah.
And then that day came where it was in my hands and I did it. And there was no going back. Once an
Yeah.
addict, always an addict. And for a 2 week run, and I ended up 5150 suicidal. Never before, never experienced that one. Wow. And yeah, it's still raw.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people. That's another place. Sober dudes kill themselves, man, after having a considerable amount of time, and it's a. But
Yeah.
one of the things I bet you could find a few common denominators in that. I bet guys that are doing that aren't putting much effort towards helping other people. I'll bet. A minute ago, you talked about growing from your failures, and the only real way to have failures is to try new stuff. Because if you
Yeah.
can't do what you've been doing, you get good at it and you stagnate because now you're not doing anything wrong ever. And I have to expose myself to new things in order to have those experiences. And I bet you those guys that are offing themselves after years of sobriety may not be doing that either. It just dawned on me as you was talking that in order to continue growing, that's been a piece of my last 10 years. I keep on trying new things, man. I keep on uh, it's not real easy to sit here in New Albany, Indiana, and think that you're worthy of being coming out here and like promoting and having this podcast. It's got, it ain't big, but I've got 60,000 downloads on this thing. I get about 10,000 downloads a year. And then the same thing with the video when the I Am 1-2 podcast that we're doing, my Christopher and I are doing together, and it's on YouTube. And when I could hide behind the microphone when the Spiritual Underground podcast wasn't video, also, I didn't have that tool yet. You can kind of hide behind the no video thing. When you stick your big mug up on those YouTubes and share it on your social media, and now them high school friends I don't remember might be watching my YouTube video. I wonder if they are. But those exposing myself to these new things has kept me in a really good spot in 10 years. And as I think about it and I watch the guys that aren't doing so well, they're sober, but uh, they didn't get what I got. The gifts I'm receiving, not saying I got it, but the gifts I'm receiving, they don't appear to be receiving. And most of the time you can see they're doing things. They're not putting a piece of their life out there to help people. They're not trying anything new. They're just stuck in the same thing over and over. Some of them kind of end up, I watch young fathers, they're kind of stuck, man, and they're trying to keep their marriage together and got a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, and they're trying to get sober at the same time.
Yeah.
But I also have a lot of experiences. The universe has sent me an unbelievable amount of men in 10 years, and I've watched this thing work more times than not. And I've never seen anybody, not once yet, haven't seen anybody that did it and didn't get better.
Yeah.
And some of them fantastically better, man. Guys are rocking life, and to have that play that little part in that. And then watch them do the same thing with another guy, and watch that snowball go down. I have a retreat out at that camp in Orange County every year, a men's retreat. And I did the first one. I was like 18 months sober. My sponsor, I said, they went to a local park for a little day retreat. They didn't like the lack of privacy. And I was like, I got a place that's really private. It's really my father's for the most part. It's titled in mine and my brother's names. And we started going out there, and at 18 months sober, the men around me helped me orchestrate a men's retreat. I don't know how to do that. I'm not qualified for that. I had the help around me. I had guys that had time, and then that they taught me. And the year before last, the whole thing was nothing but me and my guys. And that's not bragging. That's just an observation. That's just seeing, like it's an attaboy from the universe more than anything else. Of going, hey, look, good job, Dan. You're doing a good job. Yeah, it's a blast. But that's new stuff too, like thinking they're going to be a retreat. And, and I hear you talking about it as exposing going into these various areas that are vastly different from one another, created you to have to make mistakes. And therefore you grew as a result of that. And then you went and did it again someplace else.
Hey, can I bring up? I got one of those thoughts just hit me.
Yeah.
Folks have horrible times with suicide, and in your midst, a friend, a family, loved ones, anyone. 98% of the time, what I do, anybody can do it. The 2% of the time is when someone says, I'm suicidal, or I get it. I find it, I move, I sense it, I see it, I know it's there, and I got to get you to say it. And in that 2%, nobody wants my job. But the fact of the matter is, in asking, you don't push them towards suicide. If you're sensing it, you don't bring it out, go, because it's not funny, it's not meant to be. But if you got that sixth sense, that instinct that something's not right, do yourself a favor. No, do them a favor and yourself. Say, you're not going to think about hurting yourself, are you? Because if they say yes, what I would tell you to do is walk with them and go to a hospital, go to emergency room and start there. They'll find it. If it's a family member, if it's a friend, and you are graced with them sharing that that's what they're thinking, take them. Do not walk away from them. Do not fear suicide. Do not fear saying it. I talk with kids with sexuality. I talk to kids about drugs. I talk to kids about suicide. I'm saying it so that they can hear it and know it and not be confused or ashamed of it. So if you ever come across it and your stomach just don't feel right, you can never be wrong by saying, why am I feeling this? And you're not thinking of hurting yourself, are you?
You get that sixth sense
That one.
with what we have, and you feel
Yes.
people. You can feel people. What I hear
And
you saying is don't walk away from that feeling if that's nudged
no,
to you. Because we do have that conversation in my circles. Somebody will call me and tell me that so and so is saying he's going to kill himself. What I do,
yeah, yeah.
and to be
Don't
honest, I
even
don't know what to do besides get him help. Yes,
emergency
call the
room.
cops.
Yeah, well, you can do that, but then you're running into an issue with
Yeah, I don't
the
think that's
law
the best
is
idea.
framed one way. But if you go to the emergency room, there's a social worker there, and the social worker knows every resource in that county and in that town. All
Yeah,
you got to do is walk in the emergency room.
what I hear you saying is exactly that. You got to walk with them. You can't call the
No,
law. That's probably not the best thing. And that's probably the same thing when you say we fear it. Uh, frankly, I don't want to have to do that.
yeah,
So I don't want to look at that. And we are. I have an aversion to it. Even discussing it to some level, I feel it in me. That
that's what I
I don't
wanted to
like
say right
suicide.
now.
Don't like to talk about it. I see people do it.
Yeah,
And in this little bit of time I've been in here, man, I've seen more people die than any other time in my life.
yeah,
Recovery is so somebody a couple degrees away from me is dying every week.
yeah.
I know somebody that knows somebody, and it's whether my son, some of them's ODs, but you never really know for sure. It's a purpose OD too.
I appreciate you letting me say that because
I like that.
I got that feeling while you're talking, and I'm like, I got to say something.
Yep, I get
So
it. Yeah,
that's why you said this is good. Back and forth, back and forth. We got it.
yep, yep, yeah. I didn't have any concerns that we were going to
Yeah,
have a lack of anything to talk about.
that's right.
I can talk about this stuff all day long.
Yeah,
And some days I do, if I'm working with a couple of guys and two come by today and we're doing one piece of work with one guy, one piece of work with another guy, then I hop on and do a podcast and then about three phone calls
exactly.
come in the evening. And,
Yeah,
I like a new guy say, I'll give them assignments to call guys because I know they
yeah,
need that support. I want them, I say, hey, I'm going to be going hunting this weekend. Call these two guys while I'm gone because that's one of the good things about my place out there is there's no cell service yet.
yes,
Uh, um, and so I'll assign him people to call, and he'll say, I don't know what to say. And I said, just tell him, say, hey, I'm calling because my sponsor told me I needed to call you. And my guys, the guy I told you to call, he'll pick up the conversation from there. There won't
yeah,
be no
yeah,
problem with that.
yeah.
You got to,
That's passing it on. It's
you know,
you just that's
and working with people and doing this thing gets you to where you're good with talking to people too.
yeah,
That's something I was a hider, and had to do any kind of public speaking or get in front of the group. You thought that last thing I thought I'd be doing. And recovery fixed that because now I can flap my lips for hours
yes,
on end if need be. Uh,
absolutely.
so Northern California, well,
Sonoma County.
okay, Indiana's a long way from there. I think California is one of the states I haven't been to.
You
What's
know,
on your lapel?
it's my caducet. I was a hospital corpsman, Navy SEAL. So I took a Hippocratic oath to do no harm and unspoken oath to take life with extreme prejudice. No problem. So,
So
and
they got you working on fixing people in there early on, or at least knowing how to. Right after that,
absolutely.
you were in a piece when there wasn't a lot much going on, though.
No,
Technically, was
no,
there?
there wasn't. That was a time frame where it did not pop off, and it was what I did was I took a job called Military Family Life Consultant. I was a DoD contractor. The military finally saw that they had huge problems with mental health, So they brought in a program, and we wouldn't go to war zones, but we'd go to every military base in the world for all the branches and do short-term problem solving support of the individual, their families,
Hmm.
and the commands. So I was able to go back in and see a completely different military who was trying to come to terms with huge mental health problems. And it was, I did that for 7 years. Because of my background, I got a chance to go back to all the special forces. So I was able to interact with, Army Rangers and Green Berets, with PJs from the Air Force. It was, um, an amazing experience, and it let me find what I had lost. And in a way, by giving back, I got it back.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
that was,
I also see like a little puzzle being put together. Sometimes I can look back at my life and see things that happened that ended up like grooming me for who I am today, and they
yes,
had you
absolutely.
already helping people at that point in a real deep manner. And I don't know what I always said another thing I say, most of everything I see is in the rearview mirror. I don't see it happening while I'm standing in it, while I'm walking through it. It's like I
Yeah,
get a couple miles down the road or a day or two down and I turn around and go, hey,
yeah,
that was pretty cool the other day. Now I see what just happened.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
it's another one of the sixth sense kind of thing. I got a crystal ball over here that I have for fun. I had a really good friend. We got into crystals for a long time, for a while. Some of them
Yeah.
still are.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, I kind of fell off of it. It was a new thing and some stuff to learn and do for a while, and I still like them. But I've got a big, like an 8-inch lead clear crystal ball that I joke around with my guys. I told them, this is what you get, one of these when you get in recovery. When you go through this way, you get a crystal ball. You can start seeing what's going to happen and learning what not to do and what to do. And if anything else, you can learn not to make the dumb future decisions and get yourself
Yeah.
in trouble. But
Because
it gives me a crystal ball.
you
Go
got the
ahead. I'm
Harry
sorry.
Potter. Yeah, the Harry Potter comes out. You can get the wand.
Yeah,
Like,
I made a
I
one.
got a wand.
Yep. I'm a little funny in that way. I made myself a really cool little magic wand and
Okay.
turned
Yep.
it on. I turned it on my lathe. I'm a woodworker too. Growing up, that's another one of those puzzle pieces. There was these wood tools in my grandfather's shop, and I was allowed to go out there and work with some very dangerous tools as a little kid
Yeah.
by myself.
Yeah.
Like go out there and turning wood on a lathe. Thing can go bad pretty
Yes.
quick, or table saws. And but I learned to do that stuff and was given permission to, and look at that as a thing that helped me be who I am today. Was allowed, I was
Yeah.
allowed to be a little boy and have risks, do risky
Yes.
stuff. I think that's something you pad up these little kids nowadays, and they don't get to have any risk and adventure. And that's a problem with these computers, is it's taking
Yeah.
that off the table for them because they just want to sit around with their device in their hands, instead of like me growing up playing basketball at every basketball court in the neighborhood and riding our bicycles and sneaking out dad's guns and going down to the woods and shooting and
Yeah.
having an adventure. It's gone.
You, Joseph Campbell had a thing about myth, and he had said it when you transition from adolescent to adulthood, this is figuratively, not factually. You need to kill the child you were so that the man or the woman can become. And in keeping all the harms of the world away from youth, you're doing such a disservice to them. Now, as a father, whoa, you know what? No. But as a therapist and a friend to youth, that's my mentality. I'm going to kill that child and bring him along to let him see what we expect you to be as a man.
Yeah, I like that.
And your point was just spot on.
Yeah, they I had a thought and it got away from me, just like yours did earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, today, after being exposed to that woodworking stuff as a little kid, then one day grandpa died and dad got all those woodworking tools and they were in the basement. And then mom passed away and dad moved back in with me after I'd bought this house. See, I
And you
bought this
got
house and all those tools were in my basement. and
Nice.
nobody wanted to move them. Dad didn't want them. He did a big chunk. These are 1930s, 20s, and 30s type of woodworking tools that are made out of steel.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah. Yeah.
heavy and sturdy. And I don't know. It was mom died. I lost my mom when I was 14 months sober. And thank God that I was sober at the
Yeah.
moment. And it was a rough one, man, because she had had a stroke and it went real slow and long. And for a piece of that time, I had an ankle bracelet on my ankle and I couldn't necessarily help at the level that I wanted to. Although sometimes I just said F it and I called him and said, hey, my dad just called, my mom's on the floor and he can't get her up. I'm going over and helping. I'll call you when I get back. And they never gave me one bit of grief about any of those times that I did that.
Nice.
And I mean, I didn't even hear about it. Um, but Dad didn't. The beauty of that coming, Dad was thinking about downsizing. He didn't. Mom died in that house. He didn't want to live in it no more. And thinking about getting an apartment. Or I said, Dad, you are not going to like an apartment, brother. That's probably maybe one of these patio homes or something like that. You might be able to deal with. But when I was in high school, me and my brother and my dad cut the roof off of the ranch house we owned and built a big great room up there. And it also doubled as a guest bedroom and stuff. But that was where we had a hot tub, and that Thanksgiving, all the men would disappear up there to drink
Yeah.
beer and all that, watch
Oh, yeah.
football. And and so there's that living space just sitting there waiting for that moment in time that Dad can come over here and I can pay him back a little bit of having my back all my life and teaching me the skills and the stuff that I know. And I'd say that, a great dad. And I do believe that this alcoholism is some disease form or something, because it still got me, even though I had a great dad. It didn't care.
No.
It did not care about that. And, he said, my daughter's got a little asthma and she was a lot younger, and we work with wood tools downstairs, and the dust and stuff wasn't very good for her. So he said, hey, how about let's build a shop in the backyard? And at the time I was like, Dad, I can't afford to build no shop out there right now. And he said, oh, I'll pay for it. And I didn't feel good about that. I was a little bothered about it. I called my sponsor and talked to him. He said, did you ask him why? No, I never think to ask somebody why. My sponsor always, I'll tell my sponsor something. He'll go, well, did you ask him why? No, I didn't even dawn on me to ask him why. So I come back home and asked Dad. I said, why you want to do that? He just straight looked at me. He said, because I love you.
Wow.
I mean, it's that simple, and I'm up in my head for a week and wondering what to do, but then that lays out and here that happens. And I got this little wood shop in my backyard, and I get the honor of making, for fun, I make everybody that comes to the Spiritual Underground little numbers out of wood. Carve them out, and I would burn all their name and sobriety date. And it was just another way I get to participate in my recovery. I say that all the time. The more I'm doing where I'm participating in my recovery, the better life seems to go. But I also get to make money out there. I get to get up some mornings and make coffee and wander out to the shop in the backyard. And that's kind of like dream stuff. I never thought that I'd be able to do that. I thought I was stuck in corporate America with no college degree, and that a place was calling me an engineer, that I would never be able to do anything else. And doing this thing, getting on this other path. I'm also a yoga teacher. If you told me I was going to be a yoga teacher 10 years ago, I'd punch you in the nose, thought you was calling me a sissy. But all these different things that are anchored onto this life. And in yoga, we talk about getting aligned with your true north. And I like that tool too, because like I said, it's getting exposed to these different things in different places. Yoga brought a lot to my life and my philosophy and my way about going things. And that's kind of ways I know I wasn't going the right direction with that old life.
Yeah.
And we got the compass needle pointed in the direction that my life was supposed to go in, and nobody knows that. It's kind of a guessing game in a way, but you got to clean some house and do some things to get that needle to bend around there. It's got some magnetic declination over it, pulling it to the side, and finding out like who you really are, and you get on that path, man. And life has just been so good, and I get to watch it happen for other people too, man. And if we could do that with people who were 18, 19, 20, what a difference that would make in the world. That's world changing stuff. I look at it that way too, man. I didn't know how to raise my kids. I was an alcoholic. They were, they were 8 and 10 by the time I got sober, and to be honest, the mold was cast by then. I can do better, and I could have continued to do harm. So it's a lot better than anything else. But like I get to sponsor guys now that are in these age groups. I do get a lot of young guys come my way in their 20s, and most of my sponsees are 15, 20 years younger than me, and I think they look at me like dad. They don't look. I've had a little problem with that at first too, and then I just laid into it and said, okay, they didn't really have come to think of it, that guy, that guy, that guy, that guy, that guy, and that guy didn't have a father figure in their life. Well, what else are they going to do, man, but gravitate to somebody that maybe could provide that role? And I'm honored that I get to do that today. And the
Yep.
miracle out of that is that those guys are having, I sponsored them, I've been around for 10 years. So I got guys getting 7, 8, 9 years, and they've gotten married and had families. And I can watch how those men raise their children.
Yeah.
And it's a completely different world, man. That's the way little kids are supposed to be raised. It brings tears to my eyes sitting here talking about it, because that's world changing shit too, because that's where it's got to get fixed.
Yep.
We,
Yeah.
we can't continue to fix broken middle-aged people. That formula doesn't work. We got to stop breaking them when they're little.
Yeah.
And that's
Give
what I
them a
think I see you
transitional,
doing.
yeah, a guide from that
And that transition, yeah,
incredible
it's
thing,
part of it.
that adolescent to adulthood. It's just, why won't you give your kid all that you can give him for having all the tools? Because the world ain't going to be nice. It's not nice
Yep.
to any of us.
Yep.
It's
Nope, it's
real.
not. Yep. Life on life's terms. Yep. But
Yep.
like me, I didn't have the tools to raise my kids the way that I would do it if I was starting today. It'd be a whole different thing if I was starting
Yeah.
8 years ago, where even, once I had these tools in my belt. So, so the same thing with these people you're working with, that's what we're going to have to, in my opinion, those
Yeah.
are the kind of things that's going to need to happen in order to right this ship, because things aren't good out there.
No.
They're not. I know I said a minute ago about the TV shows, all that negativity, and you think there's a lot of going bad, and there actually is. But there's also a lot of people fighting for the good, and that's still my point there again was just that I do believe that the good
Believe it.
is always going
It's
to
there.
win.
You're there. I'm here. We didn't know each other 2 hours ago.
Yep. Yep.
And I'm taking this for the rest of the day with me, though, because you've told a whole different story, and it's going to take me on my journey for the rest of the day. Thank you.
Yep. Well, thank you too. We use the word juice when we talk about it juices me up. That was a juicy story you just told.
Yeah.
A guy gets up and he shares and he says something cool up at we do a hybrid Zoom meeting and thing after COVID. So we have both. So our guys
Yeah.
got to walk up to the podium, the microphone, so the Zoom people can hear.
Right.
But that allows men to attend this meeting that is very, very juicy, no matter where they're at. And that's helping people. It's a
Yeah.
little bit of a pain in the butt to do it that way. But anyway, these guys get up and we say juice. And that's what I get off of like doing these podcasts and doing this stuff. I'll be juiced up the rest of the day, just like you said, carry it with me. And it's a piece of my participating in my recovery and helping other people at the same time. And puts the pep under my step. And really what makes is give me that purpose and that meaningful life today. That's really boils down to that. It's giving me something that's worthwhile to do.
It's purpose and meaning. That's the gift.
Yep.
And I had
That
to go
is.
find it.
Yep. Yep. There's probably some lucky some bucks out there once in a while that purpose and meaning just walk up to them and jump in their pockets. I wasn't one of them guys.
Yeah.
So tell us about what's your book again and where it can be found, and
Yeah.
then also any kind of web stuff. I want to make sure to, and I'll replay
Uh,
it and jot it down for show
this
notes.
is the book, and the nonprofit is called The Honorbound Academy. No spaces. TheHonorboundAcademy.org. That's my webpage, and everything is there of who story, the various aspects of the program. That's the website that you'll be able to find out everything about me.
Yeah.
And this is the book, and it's on Amazon.
Amazon. Cool. Did you publish it yourself, or did you have somebody? Did you have an
Yeah,
editor?
I had an editor, I had a manager, and I have a publicist.
A real book
Yeah,
writer.
yeah,
Not
right
that it
here.
ain't.
See, this was the first book, and I learned how to create this book from
By
this
doing
book,
that one. Yeah,
because
that's
that one, it sold like 400 copies, and I think my father bought 200 of them.
it.
And this time I saw what I did wrong or needed to improve with for the first one. And you learn, and I adapted and I improvised. And now I am doing podcasts that are
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay, get the word out. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
all
That's
here.
it. It's a way. It's a whole different marketing thing, and I'm going to
Yeah.
guess you're probably a little like me. Marketing probably ain't your strong suit. It's
Mm.
not what you want to be spending your time doing, and I'm not very good at it either. And going around and banging, it feels a little bit like I'm banging my own drum. And but come to reconcile that. Only thing is, I know what's in my heart, and that's
Yeah.
all that really counts. And I know that I'm doing what I'm doing just to help people. And if anybody wants to come call me a ego driven because I'm on the YouTubes and I'm maybe breaking tradition 4 or 11 or whatever it is, because I'm bringing recovery to the great press radio. Yeah, too bad. I'm help. All I'm trying to do is help people. What are you doing?
You know what? The negative energy that's out there, we all feel it. And that we bring a counter to that. You know what? I don't quit, don't give up, don't give in. I'm always going to put one step in front of me. And I am first going to take care of myself, remain sober, and then I'm going to look how I could interact with the world and make it and myself better.
Yep. Amen. Yep.
And yeah.
Well, I love it. I know that my listeners are going to really like you too. They're going to
I
say, tell
appreciate
him he needs to come to the home group. If you're ever
it.
in Louisville, if you do happen, you've got my number now. And
Yeah.
if you ever are in this neighborhood, that would be cool.
Yeah, well,
Um,
you know what? Indianapolis, I got a story. I got one of my best tattoos there.
oh, did you?
Yeah, yeah.
In Indianapolis.
And being a professional, I got all button downs because you can't fly your colors. But I did. I had there was a tattoo convention in Indianapolis, and I went and got a tattoo.
Yeah.
So
Huh.
in the neighborhood.
Tattooing is big around here for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of feel like I'm running out of gas. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. But it
it's
was
like it's a funny
wonderful.
thing. It's great. It's great. I
Yeah.
love doing it, but I kind of always feel when the tempo drops, and I know that it's kind of like when you're up sharing in a
Yep.
meeting when you feel that
Yep.
tempo drop.
Yep.
I want drop the mic moments, not when would this son of a bitch get off the floor.
Yeah, come on. Yeah, there.
So, you
I'm
got any final
grateful.
thoughts? Anything you want to say before we get off of here? One of my favorite podcasters. I love to listen to hunting and fishing and stuff like that, especially when it's conservation oriented. And Steve Ranella, a Meat Eater podcast, he at the end he says, "You got any concluders?" And concluding
For
thoughts,
me,
kind of stuff.
you know what? All that it comes down to is this morning at 4 o'clock, I was on live radio and I blew it. I thought it was explained to me it was going to be about this, and it was. I'm a social worker. It was about politics in the Middle East and the election. And you know what? As a social worker, I don't touch that, and I just flailed. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get the next one. This is going to be better. And thank you for allowing me to have the opportunity to have it better than it was just a couple hours ago.
Yeah, yeah. I love the freedom of this. That sounds like something I wouldn't want to do. Those are things I just don't spend any of my mental energy on. I got better things to do than spend my cash. I get, they're one of the things I get 100 terabytes of energy every morning or whatever kind of bytes, and I get to choose where to burn them. Well, I'm going to use them. And the bad thing about it, negative energy doesn't get as good a mileage as positive energy gets. So when I'm spending my time on that, I'm burning it up. And when I do that, I lay my head down at night exhausted. When I do the good stuff, I lay my head down at night refreshed.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. So we just thank you too, man. It's raised my spirits for the day, and I will send you a link when this comes out. I usually schedule to come out on Sunday morning, so it'll come out I try to do just in time delivery too.
And here's the thing is, all friends started out as strangers. I've
They
got
do.
your number. I'll stay in just because addicts and alcoholics, I don't have to know much about you. If
Yeah,
you're
right.
sober and you got time, that speaks volumes. And I've gotten that feel from you, and I'm not going to walk away from friendship
Yeah.
when I get the opportunity.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I
All
can
right.
obviously my safety net is my support net that's underneath me, so that I can walk the tight wire and I can get up there and be it. And I know, and that net cannot be wide or deep enough. So I always am welcome. And another piece of we're all just doing this thing, holding hands virtually together, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want
I
my
agree.
line as long as I can get it.
All
Good
right.
deal. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. And looks sunny there. I don't know if it's sunshine or artificial. It's sunny here, but I got artificial lights on me.
Yeah, I got
Uh,
that. I'm still working on my presentation. I
uh,
appreciate it. Thank you.
yep. Thank you, brother. Talk to you later.
Okay.